my first boss was somebody who as well came from nothing. He was a teacher. He was one of the most successful financial advisors in the bank and in the country. He had about 6 different coaches, physical coach, mental coach, family coach, business coach. And he told me that if you want to be the best at what you do in life, like any sportsman, you need to have your team around yourself. You need to have somebody that can pull you out of the moments down, somebody that can take care of your well-being and health.
Welcome to the Impact Multiplier CEO podcast. I'm Richard Medcalf, founder of X Quadrant, and my mission is to help the world's top CEOs and entrepreneurs shift from incremental to exponential progress and create a huge positive impact on our world. Now, that requires you to reinvent yourself and transform your business. So, if you're ready to play a bigger game than ever before, I invite you to join us and become an Impact Multiplier CEO. Today, I speak with Armand Arton. Armand is a client, a friend, somebody I admire greatly. I've worked with him over the last couple of years in various capacities. But today we go back into his origin story. You see, Armand was born in Bulgaria during communist times, behind the Iron Curtain, struggled with the fact that his passport didn't let him move. It's so hard to move out the country, to go anywhere. And fast forward many years, he's built the industry-leading business, helping people achieve nationality, residency in other countries and break their mobility shackles. In the conversation, we look at so many things. How did he end up from penniless immigrant to somebody with this hugely successful business with world leaders and policymakers and billionaires on speed dial? What was the journey that got him from A to B? And what's next for him as he looks to literally 100x his impact in this area? And in the meantime, and along the way, we talk a little bit about our own experience of working together, which has been a fun component as well, to understand his perspective, his side of that story. So enjoy this conversation with Armand Arton. Hi, Armand, and welcome to the show.
Hi, Richard. Great to be here. Thank you for having me.
Yeah, you're welcome. I'm looking forward to this conversation. You and I, we've spoken together, we've worked together for several years now, and I think your story is really fascinating. I mean, if you look at the really big picture, you started, I think, as pretty much a penniless immigrant. Perhaps you correct me on that, but basically you started up with pretty much nothing. And now, I'd like to say to people, you have world leaders on speed dial and you hang out with billionaires and you've built a business which is one of the premier businesses in your entire industry, defining your industry. So I'd love to kind of perhaps on this episode explore a little bit about how you got from one state of affairs to the other. So you might want to kind of zoom back however many years and kind of tell us the story. How did all this begin?
Well, thank you for the kind words of describing my current state. And I love to remind myself and to my kids, never forget where you started. Literally went back on some of the memory lines of my childhood last weekend in Bulgaria, where I was born with my 3 children to show them where their dad started. And as everybody in this world, nobody chose the place of birth. So I was born in Bulgaria in 76, which was during the communist time, and Bulgaria was part of the socialist bloc. From Armenian descent, so grandparents always teach me the value of being relocated by force and the importance of saving money in case of that we have to run again. And they have been doing it for 2-3 generations back from the Armenian genocide. So I grew up with having a suitcase ready to go, which not many families do, especially in the countries where it's peaceful and bombs were not falling on our head. It was just, communism. Then my parents had the opportunity to be actually sent as teachers in a program to African country, to Morocco, which Bulgaria had at the time. And that's provided me actually with opportunity at a very early age to travel and to relocate to Morocco. But again, thanks to my parents' foresight, they decided to go with a car and not with a plane, allowing me to see 14 countries. and see the West, the other side of the curtain. Now, this came with a cost of applying for 14 visas, which my father had to spend a month pretty much on waiting lines in embassies, providing proofs.
These were not online visas, I assume, right? At this time, there's a lot of.
At the time, no. At the time, Europe didn't exist, Schengen didn't exist. So 14 different countries, 14 different procedures, 14 different requirements, 14 different forms. And as a single child, I was really following my father's footstep and looking at what he does. And I guess that defined at a very early age the notion of being judged by the passport at birth and treated at borders differently than other people who had a better European passport. So again, I think that the why of do what I do, it's this early age experience of crossing Europe and living in other countries, being able to adapt yourself quickly into different cultures. Again, Muslim culture, which was very different from where I was born, really uprooted my personal development. And the second important stage was after the Berlin Wall fell down and Bulgaria was, now being a democratic country, we were allowed to leave and emigrate anywhere we wanted. I had developed a passion for finance. I saw a movie called The City, actually a UK series in the early 90s that talk about brokers and currency exchange traders on the London Stock Exchange. And I decided that that's what I wanted to be at the age of 12. And there was no currency exchange in Bulgaria. There was no stock market. So the only thing available close to that was a secondary black market of currency exchange in the exchange offices. And there was this community of 20, 30 years old, youngsters who were currency exchanging between foreigners and local businessmen at the beginning of the Bulgarian, capitalist beginnings. So I took my value of the tickets for Canada, which my parents decided to immigrate in the 90s in Canada, and I risked it on that exchange. I went at the age of 12 and started trading it. And thanks God I was not robbed, and some of the people took care of me and show me how it works and ask in a bid and different currency and how you can make money and how you can hedge. And when I arrived in Canada at the age of 14 with pretty much nothing, that was $5,000 and 4 suitcases. Again, I had this passion of finance. So I ended up quickly within 2 years in the best colleges, best universities, and became one of the youngest brokers, financial brokers to be licensed in Canada at the age of 17. Started working at the largest financial institution, Nesbitt Burns, Bank of Montreal, later acquired them. And I combined those two passions for finance and financial markets and freedom by discovering a single product that existed, and it was created by Canada, which was a social impact bond, where a foreigner could invest into a specific bond and will not make money, will not make any interest, because the return that he gets is the access to become a resident of Canada. And this is where 1 + 1 became 11 in my head. I just realized that there is so many people like me, born in other countries, very successful, but limited in their mobility, that they would put a large amount of investment into another country in order to facilitate their freedom of mobility. And I did anything possible to be on that list of private-public partnerships with the Canadian government, started my own firm. And as you said, the rest is history.
Yeah. So again, fast forwarding, you do this now at scale, right? For all sorts of high net worth individuals, movers and shakers around the world. But I guess it all comes back for me to that moment when you were in that passport line or visa line on that trip to Morocco as a young boy, probably feeling like, why am I in this different queue or doing all this extra hassle compared with these people just by the side? That must have been a strange experience for somebody so young.
Well, it's, beside the financial, difference of coming from all equal communist, socialist, uprising and being thrown up into France, Germany, Spain, Italy, where Monaco, where I saw wealth for the first time, and I didn't understand why why we live in a society where everybody has to be equal, and these guys live in a, whoever makes it wins it, right? So all that shaking of notion. But again, that was something people could choose. And I understand it at the early age. You work hard, you study, you can make it. But the passport, it's something that, you come with it. You don't choose the place of the birth. And that little paper defines you at that border. And I realized that it defines the person next to me, who could be as well very successful businessman or billionaire. He will be in the same line as me just because his passport was bad. So that notion of second-class citizen that are based on, absolutely out of control circumstances was unfair and unjust. And I wanted to find an opportunity to change it.
Got it. So tell us the story then. So you said the rest is history, but let's kind of go there. So you saw this opportunity between finance and immigration or global kind of human mobility. You saw there was a way to bring these things together. How did you go from there to building, this top tier, high quality firm that's really top of it, top of its industry? Yeah, where did you begin, or what were some of the, at least I'm sure there's a big journey in that, but what are some of the key structural decisions, perhaps, or key things which you did that really paid off?
Well, in the beginning of my career, as I said, I worked for a very large financial institution and Bank of Montreal. And while I discovered this opportunity as a product called Immigrant Investor Program in Canada, my first idea was like, let's bring that to the management and to the board, and let's have my bank being part of it and me running this division for a large institution, which pretty much would have put me in being employed for the rest of my life. And the fact that the bank turned down the idea because of the complexity of dealing with such a product that requires a lot of KYC and compliance issue, dealing with foreigners coming from what they call high-risk countries. Because again, let's be honest, when people, I'm saying, are born in a bad passport countries, the definition of a bad passport is a passport that doesn't allow you to travel to many countries. China, Middle East, Africa, Russia, ex-Soviet Union countries. And this is, categorized by the financial system and by the West by a high-risk country. So it would have been very, very difficult for a large financial institutions to do this specific product. And this is where I realized that small is beautiful. And if I would have started my own business, I would have not had to convince boards and compliance department. I would have just done it. And so went out to the regulator and I said, I would like to have a license for a broker dealer and financial institution. What do I need to do? So as I already had all the licenses and the experience, I just needed the money and the capital. So I found financial partners who put the money, and over the next years, I bought them out and repaid their investment with great return. And after doing this in Canada successfully, my initial moment of reaction when Bulgaria joined Europe in 2007 was, let's go back to Bulgaria where I was born, and now teach this country that, this bad passport suddenly became great passport, became a European passport. So I went back and I remember meeting different ambassadors and ministers and businessmen, and pretty much everybody laughed and said, you mean somebody will invest and pay money to get a Bulgarian passport? It was like, they were still with the notion Bulgarians, immigrating as refugees in other countries and doing anything possible to go in the West. So they were absolutely not understanding the concept of the other way around, people paying money to come in. Until I did the right presentation and ring the right bells, and at one point convince that this is the right thing to do. And the governments passed the legislation and allowed that in 2009 to become a program, and upgraded the program in 2013. Based on that, we started advising Hungary, Montenegro, Caribbean islands. So today we have 11 different countries, from Canada as a G7 country to small islands and developing states, such as Antigua and Barbuda, St. Lucia, Montenegro, Italy, that we advise on how can we make this immigration policy more effective to attract the right amount of people with the right and clean source of funds into the country that will have the most economic impact. And yeah, that's the journey of taking it success in a country where, again, I experienced the immigration process myself, was convinced that Canada is the most refined migration policy with different steps and points and programs. And going back to the old continent where migration is not still refined 30 years later or 2000 years later. I think have so many other challenges that we can contribute to fix.
Yeah, tell me more about how you just said, hey, I got a meeting with the minister and arranged this, this new scheme. Presumably you weren't born with an address book including all these high level ministers and other people. So just tell me a bit about, like, how did you first break in, if you like, to the really high level discussions needed to shape policy in a country?
Again, very early age, while I was in Canada, I had the privilege that within 2 years of arriving, as you said, with 4 suitcases and a couple of $1,000s, I was in the same school as Justin Trudeau, in the Collège Jean de Brebeuf, which is known for having given 5 prime ministers and being the most exclusive private school in Canada. So the fact that the Canadian system allow for an immigrant like me, just based on marriage, to be in that school, I grew up with this wealthiest Canadian and Quebec families and politicians, and just realized they're just like me. So I think that, again, thanks to Canada's kind of a multicultural melting pot that doesn't judge people on level of where you come from or how much money you have, I never felt discriminated or not being allowed to be in the room or not being allowed to do this job because I was an immigrant. So for me, everything was possible. And once 15 years old, person thinks everything is possible, there's nothing that can stop him. And I assisted at the age of 16 on a conference in Montreal called the Conference of Montreal with Henry Kissinger. And that was the first, I would say, politician of international level that I met. And I was passionate about, going to the World Economic Forum, to the United Nations. And so I think that this is where I developed the easiness of dealing with heads of state and international organization, IMO, ICAO, UN, with G7 and other places where I have attended in the last 20 years, by then just having the facility of approaching heads of states and providing my advice that is a win-win formula for these countries to help them reposition their geopolitical, economical, and migration policies at no cost for the country. So I believe that I really have something to offer, and nothing can really stop me from approaching and expressing my points of view on these people.
Nice. Yeah. So hearing that you saw that these people were just people, you had some access, perhaps because of the opportunities you got in Canada, but then it was also that self-belief that you actually had something valuable that allowed you to knock at doors that perhaps other people wouldn't. Yeah.
Again, I like the notion of sharing is caring. So I knew that I have a formula I have discovered that I would like to share with the world, and a passion of freedom that can be realized by policy and financial instruments. And until now, I have focused on serving these governments and putting them together with the 1% of wealthiest people of the world who become wealthy migrants and contribute to the economies of these countries. My next passion is to find the right formula and the right breakthrough technology, innovation, or policies that would allow me to expand that freedom to the rest of 99% of the world. Because I'm convinced that if I became who I became, is because of the freedom of movement that I had. Wasn't very easy, but it was forced freedom. It still was a freedom. For more than 70% of the world, that freedom doesn't exist. They are, never gonna get easily access to visas around the world based on the passports that they hold, regardless how smart and successful they are.
Well, perhaps we can jump into the future in just a second. Perhaps it's a good time to kind of perhaps weave in a little bit here about our work together, because we met a few years ago. At that point, you'd already built this great business, highly profitable, leader in its industry, generating nice profits or whatever, I imagine. And so I guess my question is, what was it that perhaps encouraged you to start, to kind of start working together? I know that I'd done a little bit of work with your broader organization kind of during the COVID lockdown when they had virtual retreats and things that were going on. I did a little bit of work there. That's how we kind of got to know each other. But then we ended up working together one-to-one. So I'm just kind of wondering if you could take your mind back to that, what perhaps you were looking for from that relationship.
Yeah. Well, I believe in the power of coaching. So from my early career at Nesbitt Burns, my first boss was somebody who as well came from nothing. He was a teacher. He was one of the most successful financial advisors in the bank and in the country. He had about 6 different coaches: physical coach, mental coach, family coach, business coach. And he told me that if you want to be the best at what you do in life, like any sportsman, you need to have your team around yourself. You need to have somebody that can pull you out of the moments down, somebody that can take care of your well-being and health. I did pretty much, all the Canadian well-known coaching programs with him, from Stephen Covey to Robin Sharma and strategic coach Dan Sullivan. So all these books and programs and individuals meeting with these people, always guided me, I think, in the beginning of my career. And then at one point, in the euphoria of the success, I kind of forgot the need of support. So I run, I would say, for about 10 years on my own until COVID came, and I had the time to kind of slow down for myself, delegate things to my team, and realize that I was kind of missing this support structure. And I've been running alone for a long time, and this is where life circumstances we met, and I'm very happy that we had the opportunity to do so. So you can bring back some of this assisting that every entrepreneur and every businessman needs into, let's not forget, where is the goal? And whenever you think the glass is half empty, somebody can show you it's glass full. All these other examples where I think a coach can turn around the situation, uplift you, and continue the journey.
I hope you're enjoying this conversation. This is just a quick interlude to remind you that my book, Making Time for Strategy, is now available. If you want to be less busy and more successful, I highly recommend that you check it out. Why not head over to makingtimeforstrategy.com to find out the details. Now, back to the conversation. Yeah, thank you for that. I didn't know all about that background you'd actually had with your boss and all his coaches and everything else in Canada. So that's really fascinating. Let me put you on the spot a little bit. I'm always curious because you're in a much better position than I am to talk about this. Like, as you had that experience of different sorts of people to work with over the years, like, what would you say is I don't know whether it's distinctive about the work we've done together or about me, so what do you get from that relationship, would you say, if you were describing it to somebody else who was perhaps asking you, what do you work with Richard?
Well, as you know, I do talk about Richard to my friends and associates.
You do? Appreciate it. Yeah.
And I do describe you as a part of a success formula that you understand and you can break down some of the complex formulas that a success means in everybody's life and bring it into very measurable units and help us achieve these milestones on a day by day or weekly by week, and that your system works, that you're always available, emotionally, I would say, connected with your coaches and with your students or clients. The difference with some of the other coaches I had is that, they would have a large group of 50 people or 20 people. So you would not have that personal, relationship and time that I have with you. Again, wherever I can take that know-how and expertise that you provide me, I share it with my team, being that at my corporate level or nonprofit level. And again, I just do believe that external help is always needed in the life of any successful entrepreneur, athlete, or anybody who has a dream to become the best at what he does. Nobody can do it alone.
Yeah. Thank you. I appreciate that. I mean, what I see in you is, say you're somebody, perhaps we'll get onto it in a minute, who has a really big vision, whose past is, as for all of us, actually, when we mine our past, when we look at our past, we find the fire, right? We find the stories that really drive us. And I think what I see about you is somebody who's really made that a reality, right? In your phase one, and also you want to now multiply your impact and go bigger in perhaps in the next phase of your life and business. And I think what I've enjoyed in our work together is that, sometimes we've worked with the team, we've done team retreats together with your executive team, and we've seen some shifts there. Sometimes we're working on strategy and new business models and new ideas. And then sometimes it's very personal as well, right? And we kind of go deep and we look at mindset and we look at kind of all the messy stuff that we all have, somewhere under the surface. And I think for me, that's what perhaps made our relationship very rich, is that we've been able to kind of look at all those different aspects through that lens. On that topic, why don't we kind of look forward a little bit to, you talked about reaching the other kind of 99%. You've got to build a business that's incredibly successful at helping that top 1%, and you want to scale forward. Without going into kind of all the details about how that's going to look like, the personal question I want to look at is, for you, what do you think you'll need to bring out of yourself to create this new thing, to reach the 99%? How would Armand Arton need to change?
You need sometimes to be reminded of the fire at the beginning, and as well as reminded that you can still do it, even though I know very well, and again, I remind myself where I started, where I was born, and where I am today. At one point, I'm thinking, okay, but the next level is something really hard, right? And I think people don't realize that it's much harder, the first part, than the second part, right? That the first million, the first success is actually the hardest. And once you have this trajectory, this track record, actually, from 1 to 50 to 100 and to 1 billion, it's kind of easier than from 0 to 1 million, right? And I think that I need to remind myself that I'm still that kid of 15 years old that could believe that can change the world and can do anything he wants and can speak to anybody he wants. And sometimes we're the victim of our own success. We kind of limit ourselves with contemplacy and with, okay, maybe that is enough, or, that level is maybe a little bit too much and too far stretch. And, with the age and with the success, we become less risk takers than we were at the beginning. So, I would like to go back to, the same level of confidence and nothing to lose 30 years ago I had, and work the same with the same passion and fearless risk-taking decisions going forward for the next 30 years.
Yeah, well, actually, that's why I love working with you, because you do have some of that. I mean, we can always probably bring out more of it, but I have a distinction between conventional success and exponential success, right? Conventional success means you get to the top of the mountain and you kind of raise the trophy over your head and you say, hey, I've made it. I've got the house, the car, the whatever it is. And now I'm playing defense, trying to keep it all. Whereas I think exponential success is, I found a mission that I'm so excited about. I'm actually prepared to almost risk what I've currently done to create this thing that's 10 times bigger. I think that is multiplying your impact. And it can be a bit messy, but when we kind of leave the fear and defensiveness behind, that's the game that we get to play. And I see you starting to play that game.
Absolutely. You said it well. It's that comfort zone of sweet success at the beginning. It could be the most dangerous place of many entrepreneurs, where they don't have the courage to get out of it and jump into the next opportunity.
Yeah, it's like the local maximum, right? In maths or whatever it is. You're on a curve and it feels like you got to the top. And a lot of people, right, when they sell their companies, they go into depression, right? Because they're like, what am I going to do next? Or other people, they get to the top, but then they feel they really need to move it. They actually lose the spark that got them there, because now it feels precarious. It feels they've got to hold on to this. And it's a really interesting dynamic I see at play. One area perhaps we could talk about, Armand, is also, I know you've been a member you are a member of my CEO program, Rivendell, which I like to describe these days as like a mix between a deep coaching experience, a CEO peer group, entrepreneur peer group, and also a kind of a strategic incubator, as we bring together kind of interesting leaders and go on retreats together and do this kind of thing. So again, I'm just kind of wondering how that's fed into your journey. I know, you're in other CEO groups and things as well, YPO and other groups. So I'm wondering what your experience has been of Rivendell.
Yeah, Rivendell was my first great experience as well, with the rest of the group that you're coaching, because it provides, similar to what a forum of the YPO does. It's a very secure, safe environment where in a couple of days you can share and exchange in a non-judgmental way advice with your peers. So it is always great to have a coach like you, but it's also great to share with peers that are at the same level in different industry, had different experiences, some of their know-how and their history in business, that can advise you in what to do specifically in that case. Some things that I did with the rest of the Rivendell participants. And so it is a personal, smaller group, open to share their experiences in, as I said, not teaching you, but really sharing in the right format, how they can help you in whatever situation, personal or business, you are in. So I think the problem of that is scaling it and challenging it for you to be able to service in the same way and provide that frame of opportunity to as many people as you can.
Yeah, it's I think what I've really tried to do with Rivendell is create an intimacy with that group, which I think we've done I think I'm proud of what I've done in that respect, because I think even when people join the group, they get very deep very quickly with each other, which I think is one of the distinctive things about that group. And I think the other thing is the fact that there's the peer group dynamic, but then there's also this kind of quite heavily curated thing that I try to bring to kind of make it a journey for people in a way that perhaps some of the other groups don't. At least that's been my experience. But you're in these two groups. You've got YPO and you've got Rivendell. So yeah, what would you kind of, like, if you're explaining people what the difference was, how would you describe that?
Well, YPO is a 34,000 member group, right? It's actually the leadership of YPO is in Berlin this week, and I'm just seeing how a great idea 50 years ago has now become such a large group that it's kind of impossible to manage and to grow. A lot of time and money is lost on just organizational stuff that they're not helping us, right? Well, with a smaller group and more intimate, you can able actually to take out much more and to give much more in a smaller group in much closer format than the organization that requires now time and money and resources, leadership, event organizations, things that are needed if you want to have 30,000 members around the world experiencing the same thing. You care about 4 people or 10 people. And I think that this is, on the one side, this is the beauty, but that's also the challenge for you in scaling it up without losing that touch.
Yeah, without losing. Yeah, and it's a great point. And in fact, for me, Rivendell is that a key part of my own mission, right? To help the world's top leaders multiply their impact, make a huge positive difference in the world. And I see that group becoming more and more that kind of exponential incubator for leaders like you, Armand, who, you've done the 1%, you're now doing the rest of the 99. It's 100x scaling, right? And that's the kind of journey. That's why it's so fun working with you, because you are serious about that. You are serious about tapping into that fire of your past to create a different future in the world. And obviously, financially, that's going to be hopefully great for you. And also, the impact you make on other people is going to be a whole nother level as well. So it's really exciting to see that. Well, perhaps that's a great place to kind of wrap up. I'm just thinking of a great question to kind of perhaps leave you with. How about this? If you're at the end of your life, looking back, how would you want to? What would you love your legacy to be? Like, how would you like to kind of describe that, or have it on your, on your tombstone or on your obituary? What would the ultimate professional legacy be?
Yeah, there's a lot of exercises in the former coaches where you have to actually visualize your obituary and ceremony, and what you would like people to say, and how you want to be remembered. So I've done this, but
yeah, I'm putting you on the spot right now, which is a bit harsh. I didn't know this one was coming, so it's not. No.
I actually, as I said, I have done it. It's been a very long time. So I guess that maybe in the last few years, my last things I want to be remembered might have changed. But I think that impacting people's life and by rebranding what it means to be a migrant into a positive mindset is something that I would like to be remembered. While we live in a society today, it's a dirty word, and it's politically charged, and it is economically negative. If I can find a way in the next short span of the rest of my life to change that, or contribute to changing it into a positive formula for society.
Beautiful. Well, thanks, Armand. It's been a pleasure talking once again, and speak to you soon. Bye-bye. Well, that's a wrap. If you received value from this conversation, please do leave us a review on your favorite podcast platform. We'd deeply appreciate it. And if you'd like to check out the show notes from this episode, head to xquadrant.com/podcast, where you'll find all the details. Now, finally, when you're in top leadership, who supports and challenges you at a deep level to help you multiply your impact? Discover more about the different ways we can support you at xquadrant.com.